The NFL offseason is officially here now that all 32 teams are in offseason mode following the Super Bowl. Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here. About a month to go until the new league year starts, and we've already got some juicy offseason rumors building up and boiling up since the Super Bowl ended, but it is the Super Bowl, so we do have to spend some time and talk about it. And I want to know, do you agree with the James Bradberry holding call? I'll try and keep this a little short and concise. My take is, it's an unpopular take, so you already know where I'm going with it, but I think it's slowly getting a little bit popular, I think it's a good call, right? One, I think we're all in agreement it was a hold. James Bradberry said it himself. I thought in real time it was a hold. I thought during the replay it was a hold. So if we're all in agreement that it's a hold, then I think we're all just mad that the referees did their job and called a penalty that was a penalty and just took away an opportunity for an all-time ending. But it was a hold. So if we're all mad at the referees for actually doing their job for once and making the right call instead of just swallowing their whistle because it would have been cooler if we got to go to overtime or if the Eagles got the ball back, I don't think this is a fair fight to have against the ref. So I think it's the right call, even though it wasn't a very fun ending as a result. To me, it was not even a 50-50 ball. Like, it was a clear and blatant hold. The referees got it right. Unfortunately, that just came at a price of kind of a disappointing final minute and a half of the game, but that's what happens when you have a penalty at the goal line in the last minute and a half of the game. Now, let's jump into today's show. I can't believe we're back here already, but we got to talk about this. Should the Browns explore trading Nick Chubb? I'm giving this one Bernie head. I don't think it's fake news because it is the NFL offseason, which is full of surprises. And not even Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland last year was a huge surprise compared to Tyreek Hill getting traded. So if that's the bar, then it's got to be a little bit north of it. And so I give it one Bernie head's very, very small shreds of truth. Now, the trade speculation I've noticed has picked up overnight now that everyone's talking about the offseason and all 32 teams are looking to free agency in the draft. Let's go back in time, though. He is coming off a career high in rushing yards and total touchdowns, 12 on the ground, which tied a career high, but 1 through the air, so that gave him 13. This is a major long shot to happen, in my opinion. I would be blown away if Nick Chubb got traded. Major long shot, and one I am not in favor of. I am an opponent to the idea of trading Nick Chubb away. One, you're not going to get what he's worth, in my opinion. Nick Chubb is worth a first-round pick. Like, that's the type of talent he has and the type of contribution he makes to the game. Something a first-round pick could do. But teams aren't giving up first-round picks for running backs anymore. So for that reason, it's not like you'd get what he's worth. If the Browns were blown away by an offer and the Bills came in and offered a first-rounder and more, which I really wouldn't even like Buffalo's first. I mean, we're getting picky here, but Nick Chubb is worth more than just a late first-round pick. But there is something to teams aren't winning Super Bowls with great running backs who have a huge bill on the tab. Look at the last, 7 Super Bowl winning teams and their leading rushers and how much they got paid. Isaiah Pacheco is a 7th-round pick. He's making less than $1 million a year. Akers the year before that, less than $1 million. Leonard Fournette was making $2 million, and that's the biggest one. Nick Chubb's making 5 times that at $10.8 million. So I can sort of sympathize and understand where the idea comes from of trade Nick Chubb. Teams don't win Super Bowls with expensive running backs. I don't think that's an illogical statement. But the Cleveland Browns, their DNA is running the football. That's the backbone. So for that reason, I don't want to see this team reset their offense and get worse and get a player like trade away a player like Nick Chubb, who you're not going to get what he's worth, right? If someone called Andrew Berry and offered them 2 first-round picks for Chubb, I love 24, but even I would do that trade. But no one's calling to make that trade. You see what I'm saying? I think the closest trade comp we can really get is what Christian McCaffrey went for mid-season from the Carolina Panthers to the San Francisco 49ers. Here was the CMC trade, if you don't remember. The Panthers got a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, and a future 5th. I think Nick Chubb is worth more than that. I don't even know if any team would call and offer that for Nick Chubb because McCaffrey does offer you that upside in the pass department. But if a team called the Browns and offered the same trade, would you do this trade for Nick Chubb, right? If a team called and offered a second, a third, a fourth, and a future fifth-round pick, would you accept that deal? I personally would pass. I think Nick Chubb is worth more, and he's a bigger contributor than what those picks could get you. And it's not like Andrew Berry has his A-plus draft record where he turns third-round wide receivers, CeCe Anthony Schwartz, into Pro Bowl caliber players. So for that reason, I'm out. Now, let's talk about a different trade here, and that is the idea about trading for Marquise Brown. I don't think it's likely, but it has to be more likely than trading away Nick Chubb. So for that reason, I give it 2 Bernie heads. I'd really give it 1.1, but producer Sam, he's not a fan of cutting off parts of Bernie Kosar's head. Now, Marquise Brown, this idea comes from Zach Jackson at The Athletic, who did a nice article talking about the Browns offseason and sort of predictions and projections and things like that. And in it, he suggested the idea of trading for Marquise Brown instead of another Arizona Cardinals wide receiver named DeAndre Hopkins. Now, 2023 is the final year of Marquise Brown's rookie contract. His base salary is $13.4 million. Like Baker last year, this is his 5th-year option picked up, so that's just the flat rate. There's no contract bonus, signing bonus, anything like that. It's very simple. That is what he's going for. So we're going to look at what Zach Jackson wrote up in The Athletic here because it is pretty interesting, an idea of exploring a new trade target. But first, let's look at what Brown has done the last 4 seasons. This past season, he only played in 12 games in his first year in the desert. He had a good start to the year. 709 yards, 3 touchdowns. He tailed off towards the end. Previously, of course, the former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver put up 1,000 yards, which is not easy to do in the Charm City. 6 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns the 2 previous seasons. Now, let's look and see what Zach Jackson wrote in his write-up. He said, Watson has a history with DeAndre Hopkins, who turns 31 this summer and could be traded this offseason for a third-day draft pick. The better fit for the Browns in a potential trade with the Cardinals might be the speedy Marquise Brown, who's set to play his age 26 season in 2023 on the 5th-year option of his rookie contract at $13.4 million. I personally am going to pass on trading for Marquise Brown. I'm just not a big Marquise Brown guy. I've never been. One of my first weeks here at Chat Sports, we talked about Marquise Brown and a Browns-Ravens, and Sam's already giggling, Browns-Ravens preview last year. I made a Marquise Brown joke, and I can't repeat it, but we had to go back and film it later because my boss said it was too edgy. So for that reason, I'm out. Now, what I am in on, though, is today's sponsor, which is LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Now, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Here at Chat Sports, when we started or when I came aboard here, we were in the low teens, and we've already crossed over 20 employees now, and a lot of that is due to LinkedIn. So when you add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, it'll help spread the word that you're hiring. Plus, with simple tools like screening questions, it'll make it easier to focus on candidates with just the right skill set and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's also why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to and faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/NFL Daily. A free job posting when you go to linkedin.com/NFL Daily. Terms and conditions apply, but all that information for you guys, including the link, is in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's go back in time, though, getting back to this Marquise Brown trade segment here. He was traded from the Ravens to the Cardinals in a bit of a surprising draft day trade a year ago. And in that trade, the Ravens got the 23rd overall pick from Arizona in exchange for Marquise Brown and the 100th overall pick. I don't think Marquise Brown is fetching a first-rounder anymore. So if I had to speculate, One, he went for the Cardinals or the Ravens got a first for him because Arizona at the time was like, hey, Kyler Murray, D-Hop, like we're in a win now mode, and we can get a good wide receiver for 2 years under his rookie contract where he's relatively cheap. That's worth giving up a first and getting a third in return. Now it's different. Now you only have 1 more year under his rookie contract before you have to pay him next offseason. So I think Marquise Brown probably goes for just a third-round pick, maybe a second. I guess Chase Claypool went for a second, so maybe Brown fits that same, category. But I think the Bears just got burned on a bad trade, and I don't think all of the teams are going to reset the market to second-rounders for these guys. I think people are just going to kind of laugh at Chicago, kind of like Dallas last year. The Cowboys just got burned on a bad deal. Doesn't mean all future trades for good wide receivers are going to be fifth-round picks. I'm not opposed to trading draft picks away for proven talent. I think I've made my track record pretty clear on the show before about this. But when it comes to trading for Marquise Brown specifically, I'm not in on. Never been a big fan of Marquise Brown. He's got the drops, and I can just kind of picture it now, giving up a pick, him coming to Cleveland, playing the Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium, and he drops a wide-open touchdown, and the stream is over in the watch party because I'm in full meltdown mode. Now, help us out, though. I want to keep this channel growing throughout the entire offseason. Our next milestone is 17,500 subscribers. We are less than 400 away. So if you haven't already, please join the channel by clicking that subscribe button and getting the best free Browns content. Moving on to our third segment of the show. Should the Browns go out and sign a Super Bowl free agent? I'm going to give it 3 Bernie heads. I don't think I'm all the way at 4 because I don't think there's an absolute slam dunk candidate that makes sense for both sides. But I think there's a lot of good names out there. Let's start with the Eagles free agency. Top guys that make sense for the Browns. Javon Hargrave, what more do I have to say? He's one of the better defensive tackles in the free agent market. He's going to be 30 this offseason, so that's definitely a name to watch for. I'm guessing the Eagles might run it back with him. It doesn't seem like those two are going to be on the same page in terms of what the Browns can offer in terms of money. I don't think Andrew Berry wants to break the bank for a 30-year-old defensive tackle. That's not really his MO. And I think Javon Hargrave is going to find a team that would break the bank for him. Some other free agents to look at, though. Fletcher Cox, Kazir White, Marcus Epps, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that is. All names at positions that are somewhat needs for the Browns. Cox is probably a bit too old for Andrew Berry's liking, but he could bring some much-needed leadership. Kazir White, I thought, made a good name for himself during the Super Bowl. He's made a lot of great plays this year for Philly. Epps, he's the other safety, opposite of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And right now, with John Johnson likely on the way out, we got to look at all safety free agents. Now let's turn our attention to the Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't have a plethora of free agents that make a ton of sense for Cleveland. I'm not a big Juju Smith-Schuster guy. I thought he peaked his rookie year and has been slowly downhill since then. Mecole Hardman, I do like, and I have talked about before, so we'll look at a different name more specifically, but that's definitely one to keep an eye on, especially when looking for speed. Juan Thornhill, I thought played a great game yesterday. Another safety to look at here. Then there's Kalen Sanders and Derek Nottie. Kalen Saunders, excuse me. Saunders is one name to watch for because if the Browns stick to what they have done since Andrew Berry took over and go cheap at defensive tackle, he is someone that's probably not going to command a ton of money in free agency. So if Daron Payne gets franchise tagged, which is I'm not saying likely, it's a very real possibility, and Hargrave goes back to Philly, where the Browns don't want to give a 30-year-old a lot of money, Saunders and some of these other lower-level names could be guys to watch out for. Before we sign off, I just want to take a moment and talk about one of the biggest news stories out there right now that sort of got swept under the rug, if you ask me, over Super Bowl weekend, and that was the train derailment in East Palestine, a town in Ohio right on the Pennsylvania border, if you're not familiar with it, and just horrific scenes and images have come out from it. And just before we started filming, producer Sam goes, I had never even heard this was happening. And I just think that more awareness needs to be raised to what's been an ecological and environmental disaster, in my opinion. And we're talking about our neighbors, our brothers and sisters in the Buckeye State. So everyone at in East Palestine, we're doing more than just saying generic thoughts and prayers here at the channel. Once recovery efforts start to be made, we'll definitely be looking into ways we can help support and help we get East Palestine and the surrounding areas back on their feet. So you're not forgotten here at the channel. Now, I do want to give, more than just a shout out here for the rest of the show here and to our end of the video crew segment. If you make it all the way to the end of the video, you know the drill this off season. You get to comment a random Browns player, and I'll pick one to go on screen for the next show. And I thought, since talking about Nick Chubb trade rumors, what better candidate than what Miguel submitted, which was Trent Richardson, the Browns' third overall pick, which I think most people don't realize was the number 3 pick in that 2012 draft. Of course, he was traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a first-rounder and kind of ruined the idea of trading running backs for first-round picks because the Colts got burned, and now Richardson plays in the Mexican Football League still. I think he's like on the Chihuahuas or something like that. I can't remember. But Trent Richardson is definitely a random Browns player. He was in Chihuahua. There we go. So, Trenton Richardson, you are our random Browns player for today. Shout out to Miguel for picking him on the previous video.